So Age of Ultron just came out, and that's all fine and good, but Marvel's not wasting a single second getting on with their next project, Captain America Civil War. Recently, the full roster of characters was announced for the movie, and in case you haven't seen it yet, here's a quick recap. Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, the Vision, Scarlet Witch, Agent 13, the Winter Soldier, Ant-Man, Black Panther, Falcon, Crossbones, War Machine, Baron Zemo, General Ross, Martin Freeman in an undisclosed role, and of course Spider-Man. I considered making a video going over my thoughts on the lineup, but then I thought, why not instead get out what I hope to see in this new, hopefully epic movie? So that's what I'm gonna do today. Without further ado, let's start. Like I just pointed out, this movie is going to be crowded as anything, and I really don't want this movie to be Avengers 2.5. There can be some focus on Falcon, the Winter Soldier, and War Machine, because they're the right-hand men for Cap and Iron Man. But the rest of these characters shouldn't have big subplots. They should be there because we need a lot of people in this so they can actually be a big epic Clash of the Titans. Don't get me wrong, you can devote some time to these other characters, but I don't think we need a Black Widow Ant-Man subplot, or a Black Panther side mission, or General Ross, who for some reason is in this movie. My point is, I don't want everyone pulling away from what should be a Captain America vs. Iron Man movie. Captain America is practically getting sidelined in his own movie. I want most of the movie to be dedicated to Steve Rogers and Tony Stark's conflicting ideologies. It doesn't even have to be them fighting for most of the movie. Their clashing ideas are interesting enough. A character that I especially don't want to draw a lot of the attention is Spider-Man. I'm not saying he should just be a cameo. I do realize that he plays an extremely pivotal part in the story, but Marvel had a whole script ready without Spidey, and I'd hate to see him completely shoehorned in. He's going to get his own solo movie a year from this film anyway, so don't have him be too much of a major character. And that leads me into my next point. This might seem strange at first, but hear me out. One of the most famous moments in comic book history is when Spider-Man pulls off his mask and reveals himself as Peter Parker to the world. It's massively important to the Civil War story, and Spider-Man lore in general. But here's the thing, as a couple of people have already brought up, the reason that moment was so powerful and effective is because there had been decades of Spider-Man hiding his secret identity, and that had been a big part of his story for so long. If they do it in this movie, it won't nearly work to the same effect. Like, hey, this kid showed up in a red costume. He took his mask off. Alright, I really hope they don't waste that scene before we actually get to know this new Spider-Man. So if they really want to do the unmasking scene, have him be introduced in Civil War, then develop his character a lot more in the solo movie that's coming up, and then in Infinity War or even a later film, you can have that moment if you really want to include it somehow. I realize that it's important to the Civil War story in the comics, but Marvel has never had to follow the comics that closely. You know who else are big players in Civil War? Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman. See my point? Something that I really liked about Avengers Age of Ultron is that, since this was Joss Whedon's last Marvel movie, he just went, well, I'm not gonna set up any future movies. Yes, there was Thor's obligatory side mission, yes, there was the end credits scene, and yes, there was the fight between Cap and Iron Man. But the movie was by no stretch an Amazing Spider-Man 2, a commercial for the next film. I really want Civil War to be its own once-off thing. Sure, set up more Black Panther if you want, that's fine. Or a bit of Spidey. But this should be a film focused entirely on the freedom versus security issue, and the conflict that arises from that. We really don't need Thanos to come down in the last 5 minutes and say, I'll be back in 2018, see ya. Just have this be its own independent film. Probably the thing that I'm most excited for in this movie is the fact that Tony Stark will be the villain. Sort of. He isn't exactly the bad guy in the comics, you can side with either character, but generally speaking, he does come across as the bad guy. Also, the film is called Captain America Civil War, so that should indicate something. And that's going to be so awesome. Tony Stark, the guy we've followed and loved literally since day one of the MCU, the guy who is most people's, including my own, favorite Avenger, he's gonna be the villain. That's gonna be so cool, flipping it all on its head. It's like if in X-Men Apocalypse, Wolverine becomes one of the bad guys, which, ironically enough, might actually end up happening. The reason I bring all this up is because Marvel isn't great with their villains, especially compared to DC. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all serviceable, but really, Loki's great, Ultron's great, the Winter Soldier's great, and Red Skull's pretty good. Besides them, the bad guys are pretty forgettable. And now, they have an opportunity to use an exciting and new kind of villain. But instead, they've got Baron Zemo, who, I'll be completely honest, I know nothing about. I'm sure he's a threatening guy, and they've got a good actor to play him. But I'd much rather see Tony Stark be the guy I have to root against than generic Marvel villain number 7. My final wish for this movie is that in it, Captain America dies. Now this whole thing might seem a bit far-fetched, but just stay with me here. So in Civil War, he gets killed. How, it doesn't really matter. You can have it be at the hands of Crossbones like it is in the comics, since he's in this movie anyway, but it would pack more of an emotional punch if Tony kills him. Regardless, Cap's dead, and this really throws the MCU into chaos. Bucky could potentially take on the mantle and don the shield, as he's done in the comics and as it was hinted at in the Winter Soldier. Or they could follow the newer comics route and have Falcon become the new Captain America. That could be a very interesting story arc. Anyway, the other movies continue continue as they would, and then we get to Infinity War. There's this huge crisis going down, Thanos is destroying the world or whatever, and then they bring Captain America back. How? Well, this is the Marvel Universe, so you can pretty much do it in any way you want. Maybe he faked his death. Maybe he was nursed back to health by some Russians. Maybe he fell into space and then for some reason actually didn't die. They could use the Tahiti Project, the program that is actually designed to bring back dead Avengers, as seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The most likely scenario is that during the battle, the Avengers get their hands on some Infinity Stone, and they use it to bring back Cap. The most likely would be the Time Stone, as they can go back and save him, and then he can help out in the final battle. I don't know, maybe it's really dumb, but I think that's a solid idea. Oh, and also, this is a really quick thing that has nothing to do with this. I just wanted to bring it up. I recently-ish hit 1,000 subs, which, just to be completely honest, is amazing. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm just a guy who likes talking about superheroes and movies and comics and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that other people also enjoy it, it's pretty cool. So anyway, what are your wishes for Civil War? Do you agree with what I want? Let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.